Welcome to the Franklin and Alan show. I'm your host this week, Dave, and with me are the two Franklins, Ben and Kev. How you doing?
Hello.
Right.
This episode, we are talking about our favourite debut albums. How was Christmas?
Nice.
How was festive break?
Yeah, it's all right. Did it make you feel better taking all the Christmas decorations down?
God,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? I prefer that to
it.
putting them up.
I love it. I love taking the tree down.
Yeah.
I love having my living room back to normal
Yeah.
and just right. I can forget that now.
Yeah.
Forget that. That's done. That's done.
Put that to bed.
Put that to bed. It's birthdays now. I can deal with birthdays.
So, who wants to kick it off?
I'll go first.
Nice. Go for it.
Fairly obvious, this one for me. It's Stone Roses. And there's a few reasons why. Not only is it still one of my favourite albums, which is kind of reason enough, it's still a great album. There's maybe one track on there that doesn't quite reach the standards of the others, but generally speaking, every track on there is a belter. But the reason it's such a good album, and the reason I think it's still revered as much as it is that at the time it was released, you've got to remember what music was around at the time it was released. It was mostly dance music, hip hop, or stock taking and Waterman pop. Even
Or
the
metal.
kind of
or rock.
Yeah, or rock.
Yep.
But even the kind of, I suppose you'd say, cool, the bands that would be the Stone Roses contemporaries of the 80s, so bands like the Smiths or even the Cure. The Smiths had broken up by that point. So the Cure weren't really very prominent at that point. So there wasn't a lot of that music around at all. But also I think the way that album sounds, you can hear the kind of 60s influence. You can hear the kind of, yes, the Byrds, that kind of influence. You can hear that harking back to the 60s. And we weren't used to that, because at that point, the kind of, pop music wasn't very old at that point. So the previous bands hadn't really displayed their influences in that way, because there were fewer of them. And it's easy for us now. You listen to any band now and you can kind of trace back where their influences are, because music's more readily available and all that kind of thing. So it was kind of a big surprise to hear a band like that, but to be able to kind of pinpoint that's where their influences are and that's where it's come from, because you weren't used to doing that with previous bands, really. So that's why I think it's still revered, is because it stood out against its contemporaries at that time, but also that it made people nostalgic for other music as well, which very few bands had done up to that point.
Yeah.
That's why my first pick is Stone Roses, The Stone Roses.
It's on my honourable mentions. I think they really ruined it with that Don't Stop. And I know they're trying to be innovative and all that, but it ruins the flow of that album for me.
Yeah, that's the track I'd say where it kind of dips. But if you look at the tracks that are after that, so I Am the Resurrection, this is the one.
Tough choice for me. I was going to put it in and I didn't, because I knew you'd pick it. Because of the impact culturally on music, and it, like you say, it still is today. It's still artwork, everything about, they tried, it was all different, wasn't it? It was all different.
Yeah.
It was a
cool
thing they were doing. Yeah.
Spawned a million kind of copycats, didn't they? But
of course it did. Yeah.
The good bands do.
Any good album, any good band will do that.
It's going to influence, right? Yeah. If any good album is going to make a 14-year-old kid want to play guitar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one. Really good one.
Yeah, it is great. the opening track and the closing track, awesome.
You
Absolutely.
got Made of Stone in the middle as well.
Made of Stone, yeah.
Okay, so the main comparison, right, is Oasis, right? And Oasis were the much bigger band, right? But what all of those other bands that followed the Roses, what they lacked was the groove.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Roses had the groove, and that was the difference between the Stone Roses and everybody else. They brought that bridge between the influence of sort of 60s guitar pop and psychedelia and dance music that was going on in Britain at that time, and it was that bridge between the two, and nobody else that's followed them has come close to recreating that.
Well, they were heavily immersed in kind of rave culture as well. That they would, because they couldn't get gigs anywhere in Manchester, they used to put on warehouse parties and just have, dance music, and they would play in the middle. So they kind of had to develop that kind of dance influence, and that because people turn up to a warehouse party to dance, so and a band comes on, you've got to keep them dancing, haven't you? So
there's a romance to the Roses that they're George Best in a way. Do you know what I mean? They're capable of genius, but they've got
so much more
fucking self-destructive streak as well.
Yeah,
like they should have been the best band in the world. They should have been the best band in the world, and they failed to meet their potential.
Yeah,
good choice. Yeah, good choice. Go on, Ben.
This is an album that I loved, partly for the sound, partly because it was really poppy and clever as well. It was witty, it was sad, lyrically very good, harmonies are fantastic, and it's the Housemartins' first album.
Oh, nice.
Because it's because they're so young, and they're just the complete opposite of what a pop star should be. You know,
massively.
They're quite nerdy, and there's a real sort of self-deprecating humor about them, and the lyrics as well. And just as a band, they were just great. They were just really tight, really fun. Yeah, and it's just chock full of great singles, and I love it. I love it. I still love it now. I think it's a great album.
A brilliant album of social commentary as well. Really politically charged lyrics. Yeah, like the antithesis of what a pop star should be. Like, Paul Heaton's wearing a cardigan for most of his Housemartins career, right? And they
invited their mums on. They had their mums on top of the pops.
Yeah,
their mums on top of the pops with them.
Yeah, Yeah, it's great.
What year did that come out?
86.
Is it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, 1986. I think I had it when we lived in Spain. So
we were living in Madrid at the time, and or just after it came out, or year after it came out, and we just listened to it relentlessly.
It's difficult to know what happened with that band. So they released a couple of good albums, but then kind of I think Norman Cook wanted to explore dance music a bit more, didn't he? And
Funboy 3.
No, he was Beats International.
Beats
Funboy 3 was the
right.
Specials and
That's
Banana.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, so he kind of
what's
went
he
on
done
before.
since, eh?
Sorry?
Yeah.
What's he done since?
Yeah.
I always remember Housemartins. I don't really know a lot about Housemartins. You know more of what they've done afterwards. I do anyway.
Yeah.
But I always remember it was always on at Youth Club, Housemartins.
It's a great title for an album as well.
Yeah.
Hole 4, London nil.
Yeah.
It's just it's a great name for an album. Yeah, really good. Go on and Dave.
Me, right. So polar opposite of you two. I've gone for Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, because it is the best-selling debut album of all time. It's no fluke, though. They were part of the LA scene, and they sounded nothing like any of the other bands that come out of that. They come along, and it was like this punk metal blues Stone Roses, Rolling Stones, mashed with Aerosmith, mashed with Sex Pistols, something like that, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's just they just come out of nowhere. Blue rock music into the hemisphere, took over MTV. Side 1 of Appetite for Destruction, Welcome to the Jungle, It's So Easy, Night Train, Out to Get Me, Mr. Brownstone, Paradise City. That is a side 1. There's not
Yeah.
a weak song there. And then side 2, it's okay. There's some great songs, but it's got Sweet Child of Mine on it.
How you don't finish an album with Paradise City?
Well, they finished it with Rocket Queen, which is absolutely brilliant. Awesome song. Riffs galore. Some of the best guitar solos. They structured their songs. They weren't the usual 80s hair metal songs. It just changed music. You look at the albums that come after that. So one of my other favorite albums is by Poison, Flesh and Blood, because it's so different to their earlier stuff, but they became more mature because of Appetite for Destruction, LA
Yeah.
Guns, Hollywood Vampires, another brilliant album. But before that, they sounded quite weak and hair metal, it was all widdly diddly, and they changed their sound slightly because of Appetite for Destruction. Just phenomenal album, hit after hit.
Yeah, it's a great album. It's a great choice, Dave. I knew you'd pick that.
It is awesome as well in terms of, because everyone says grunge and specifically Nirvana killed hair metal, but they did it. Guns N' Roses did it in 1987. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Let's
That's
go
round
through then. What's your choice?
Because I can't vote for my own, I would put Stone Roses through.
Stone Roses.
Yeah, I because I had the House Martins album and loved it at the time, it would have been that. I don't know very much Guns N' Roses, so I would have chosen House Martins.
Round 2, yep. Down to you, Kev.
For my next choice, I have chosen Are You Experienced? Jimi Hendrix Experience. It's hard to imagine now because music is so much more varied and easily accessible and all of that now. It's hard to picture a time where guitar sounds like that and people playing like that didn't exist. So imagine hearing that sound for the first time. It changed the way really good guitarists looked at playing the guitar. Eric Clapton said it changed the way he played the guitar because he thought, I'm doing this all wrong. And it's a pop album, really. Although they are kind of really songs that influenced future rock music, they're a lot of, they're a pop band essentially. And that album just changed the course of rock music. Are you getting the track listing up, Ben?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the North American version, so it's got the yellow cover, and because like a lot of those albums at that time, they all had, when they were released in the UK or wherever, they had the track listings changed.
Yeah.
So my one's Foxy Lady, but it's got the E in it, but the English version is without the E.
And
I think there's a couple of songs that are different as well.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because which version, dude? Because this is going to completely depend on how I vote for this.
That's why I didn't put it in, because there are completely different versions of it. So the one I've got is starts off with Purple Haze.
Yes, that's the North American version.
Yeah, so Purple Haze.
We're all looking on Wikipedia, aren't we?
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's second? Confusion.
Manic Depression.
Oh man, is it? And then
Hey Joe.
Yeah.
Love and Confusion. May This Be Love. I Don't Live to Stay. And then side 2, Wind Cries Mary, Fire.
Oh, what a song, Wind Cries Mary, though.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it?
But yeah, everything you said,
I'm
Kevin.
going to say the UK version.
What's different? I can't remember.
No.
Has it got Red House?
Nice Mary, no Purple Haze.
It's got no Purple Haze on it.
It's got Red House. It's got Foxy Lady, Manic Depression, Red House. It's got Fire, Third Stone from the Sun. It's got Are You Experienced?
Great album.
As much for the songs that are on it, but for the
Impact.
the impact it had and how it changed.
And the influence. Anyway, great choice. Sorry, Ben, go on.
Enter the 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang Clan.
Ooh.
Production on this is just, it's so intricate, it's so clever. Obviously, like, samples have been, it's such an integral part of hip hop. Sample is such an integral part of hip hop, but the range of the sampling that they use, obviously, like the Kung Fu movies is like the thread that runs through it, but some of the stacks and some of the old soul songs that they sample on it, it just the range of influence on it is kind of mind-boggling, really. I think the main thing about them that I love about this album is you have six or seven lyricists, right? Each has a completely unique style that just flows so effortlessly between them. I think that this album was completely different to anything else that was going on in hip hop as well at that time, right? So you look at hip hop at this time, and obviously, like, the West Coast was so popular, and the West Coast had like the funk element, and there was this kind of like laid back sort of sound to it, but the Wu-Tang Clan, like, it's not even like a New York sound, it's like a very specific Staten Island sound. So even within New York, they're right out on the outskirts of it. So even within New York, who were kind of not ostracized, but, you know,
It's an unfashionable borough, right?
Yeah,
Staten
not a
Island.
fashionable place at all. So it's like the forgotten part of New York, and for them to kind of blow up in the way that they did, and to stick to the way that they did it, they stuck to their own path, right? They didn't deviate. They didn't change their image to suit. They created their own sound completely.
Wu-Tang, so that created a harder hip hop format, yeah? Is that right to say? It'd
always been there. It'd been there, but I think what the especially New York, when you look at around that time that came out of New York, so you had the Wu-Tang Clan and Nas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the two. I'm going to say those two because for me, those were the hardest of it. There was a grime to them. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a polished thing. It wasn't like Biggie Smalls and like P Diddy that were from New York, but like still great. Biggie Smalls was fantastic.
Pop music, though, mostly.
Yeah, I guess.
Like within that genre,
I still think he's probably the best rapper of all time, though.
Who?
Like, his style, his flow is maybe Eric, maybe
Rakim.
Maybe Rakim, yeah, maybe Rakim. Yeah, but I think that what the Wu-Tang did is there was a grit to them. There was a grit to them. There wasn't. No, it didn't feel like that. Like, didn't feel like there was light at the end of the tunnel. Do you know what I mean? It was just. It wasn't like we're going to make millions and millions and millions. It's not like cars and stuff. It was grimy. It was like people being shot in alleyways, and it was just horrible. You know what I mean? It was.
But it was also that they created a I don't like empire is not the right word, but that's kind of how it felt, that Wu-Tang wasn't just them. Wu-Tang was a thing.
Yeah.
Wu-Tang was a
It
movement.
was unflinching, right?
Yeah, and it was there was about 107 of them, for fuck's sake. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So it felt like an assault. It felt like it was something big.
I mean, it went to shit. It all went to shit in the end, you know.
Oh yeah, agreed.
That first album's great.
Same as everything else.
First album's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really,
so there you have it. That's my choice.
that was one of mine. Really good. Go on, then, Dave. You're going.
Oh yeah, me, innit? I don't know why I picked this, just because I didn't want to pick Jimi Hendrix. I think I really like this album though. It is a great album. I think it's before Are You Experienced. I've gone for Fresh Cream because I hear lots of, well, they were a super group when it was a new term back then, but they were a super group. They came from different genres of music. They were all virtuosos of their instruments, and they came together and made this fucking noise. It was heavy, it was psychedelic, it was bluesy, there was jazz in there, it was something new. I don't think they really knew what it was, because it went on to better things. This isn't the greatest album, but I don't think there would have been Are You Experienced. I don't think there would have been The Doors, possibly, but I think this influenced a lot of that. It definitely influenced things like Led Zeppelin, because that heavy thud of the bass and the drums. I Feel Free, opening track, wow, that it's like, whoa. Yeah. Brilliant. Vocally, I think the vocals are what stand out with all their excellence of them. I think it's the vocals that make this a really good album. It's what's his name, Jack Bruce. He can wail, and I think it pushed Clapton to be a better singer, and he pushed him to be a better guitar player, and then obviously Hendrix come along and changed it again. But I think there's a massive influence there on everything that came after that in the 60s. You know, you list that album, there's only one or two, three maybe original songs. Most of them are traditional blues.
It's quite early though, isn't it, for it to be that sort of psychedelic?
That's why I think if you listen to it, it's quite trippy. Yeah. It's quite heavy.
Yeah, it breaks the mold a little bit, I suppose. You're right.
It does. If you think what else was around, Jeff Beck.
It's late 60s, and that must have been going on at the time, right? So when Hendrix is recording and writing Are You Experienced, and Love writing Forever Changes, and you've got the Doors, and you've got all of this thing that's going on all at the same time, you know. Yeah, a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it was for me. It was a toss up between that and I was either the 13th Floor Elevators. I think they're both, that first album, the Psychedelic Sounds.
Oh, good one.
Is they're both really grand, but they're not really revered albums. I don't think. Maybe 13th Floor Elevators is, but
I don't know. I listened to that. I put that on my Apple Music the other week. Yeah, it's a tough listen, that one.
It's hard listen because they were fucked out their heads. They were proper, but you can hear influences that people have nicked.
Sure, yeah.
And I couldn't name you another band in the world that have an electric jug player. So hats off to them for that. There you go. Yeah, Fresh Cream. Just because I didn't want to pick Jimmy, so I didn't want to be this. There's some really good songs on it. There's some really naff songs, like most albums. But
one of mine was Ben's choice was one of mine, so I'm gonna have to vote for Wu-Tang in that one.
Hendrix over Clapton for me.
Yeah, Hendrix. Final round.
Led Zeppelin. my reasons for Led Zeppelin are pretty much all the same as your reasons for Cream. It's that they had come together from different bands.
Yeah.
Particularly, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones were really well respected session musicians. Bonham was a session musician. So they had kind of formed this super group. Robert Plant's voice is like nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Just some of the tracks, I mean, just for what is essentially, or what they became, the biggest rock band in the world, and kind of, they're kind of held up as like although it's not necessarily true, the kind of pioneers of rock music. That first album is so bluesy.
Yep.
It's kind of a dirty blues, like tracks like Dazed and Confused. That's just such a kind of dirty blues sound. But what I find remarkable about it, and Zeppelin it completely really, is how did they get as big as they did without ever releasing a single?
Yeah, I know.
That album became massive off
I
the
think
back of word of mouth.
It's a great album.
Right.
It's a great album.
Tommy Portishead. It's just it's amazing. It's amazing. It's hip hop and jazz and soul and kind of smoky barroom cabaret, and it's just haunting. Her voice is fucking amazing. The guitar sound is completely fucking
Out there.
It's out there. It's just a beautiful bubble of its own kind, really. Like Massive Attack were great, but that album for me was it's just almost a perfect wave of an album. It's just wonderful. It's just a brilliant album.
It has the same kind of feel to it as What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. It has a seamless feel to it, even though it's very definitively different songs. It just feels like it flows from one song into the next.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost the highest praise I can give an album, that it reminds me of what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I was going to go for Massive Attack, Blue Lines, but this is where I revisited, and I've got to put this band in because they're my favourite band. And this is probably, I believe, this is the greatest debut album of all time, because I don't think there's a bad track on it. I think there's good and then even better on it. And I'm going to go for Pearl Jam's 10.
Yeah.
Of
Because
course you were.
Of course I would. Everyone goes on about Nevermind changed the face of it, but 10 came out before it. It set the scene, it grew the scene, and then obviously all the others came along as well. There was something happened in that town, in that city, then but for me, it's just as influential as Nevermind. Like I say, I can't fault the songs on that. Maybe the production could be a little bit better. I think they've always not really liked it, but it's got the classic rock album sound. You got Eddie Vedder's vocals.
Eddie Vedder.
Ready, Eddie.
Are you ready, Eddie Vedder?
They were, they're probably not unique, but at the time, no one had heard of a vocal like that. This booming voice that loads of bands tried to emulate afterwards and sound like tossers. But for me, the secret of Pearl Jam's success, and particularly this album, is Stone Gossard and Mike McCready, two guitar players. Just how they play guitar is so different, and where I've been relearning guitar over the last probably 10 years, I've studied them more, and it's so clever. One standard tuning, one in alternate tuning, and they play off each other, and guitar solos like you've not heard. They're not widdly diddly, but they were like a new expression of Hendrix and Stevie Ray. It was, it's just a brilliant album. Brilliant album.
What I like about a lot,
epic sound, classic riffs.
what I like about a lot of the tracks on that album, Dave, is they're almost not structured like normal songs. There's the guitars kind of play intermittently.
Yep.
And they play as almost a counterpoint to the vocal.
Yep.
So there is quite a groove to it. Although it's a rock album, there is a kind of groove to that, in a sense. Not
totally. I don't know. I can't know what else I can say about it. It's just a classic album. There's fucking hit after hit on it. And
really good choice. I haven't heard that in a few years. That album, but
It's really good.
it's for a rock album. It's not. What I liked about it at the time was it wasn't because I didn't really like rock music at the time. It's not a verse chorus solo chorus kind of rock album. There's a difference to the way the songs are structured. Lyrically, the songs are stories. He's a storyteller, ready.
Tells a story.
Yeah. So lyrically, it's quite interesting as well.
Yep.
And musically, they're quite good.
What's this one about? This one's about an abusive stepfather. Whoa, steady, anybody. That's not going to sell.
So there we go. There's all our choices. So let's vote for round 3 and then we're going to the final. So what was it? Pearl Jam 10, Portishead.
Led Zepp, Dummy, and Pearl Jam.
Oh,
I'm going to go with Pearl Jam.
Led Zeppelin was going to be on my list, so I'm going to go Led Zepp. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go Pearl Jam. I love the Portishead album, and I wish I'd chosen that.
So I like it as well.
But I loved that album at the time. There were 1 or 2 albums that I played to death around about that time. Nevermind was one of them, and Pearl Jam was another. So I'd go Pearl Jam.
There we have it.
Here we have it.
Stone Roses.
Are you experienced?
And
10.
I'm going to go with the Roses, unsurprisingly.
We can vote for our own in the final, can't we? Because I'm going to go the Roses, obviously, because it's my choice.
Best debut album. It doesn't matter what I vote for, does it? Stone Roses have won. She Bangs the Drums is one of my favourite songs of all time for some reason. I think it's such a simple song.
It's full of great songs.
It's so simple.
What are your honourable mentions?
I'll just go to my page.
The last. My other honourable mentions, I would have chosen Wu-Tang, obviously. This is a really silly reason for picking this, but the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, I got that. What?
License to
Ill.
I know.
My reason for picking it is any album that can spark a teenage crime wave of prizing the VW badges off the front of cars deserves an honourable mention.
It does deserve it, but it kicked off. You two will probably disagree, but I'd not really heard rap music or hip hop, whatever it is. Beastie Boys smashed it, brought it to the mainstream. So they changed the game.
Yeah.
I had Van Halen, because you think 1978, I think it came out. No, that guitar sound. Not a great album, but just for the impact. I had Metallica, Kill 'Em All. I wish I'd have put that in, really, but I knew I wouldn't be able to discuss it with you two, so I didn't bother. But again, that changed the scene. That made.
Please tell us more about rock music, though.
I had Talking Heads, 77. I really
great one, Psycho Killer.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good album. It's a really good new wavy
Good
sort
one.
of,
Really good one.
brought that in. Doors, obviously. Oasis. I had definitely maybe I was going to go.
Yeah, great choice.
Sort of another one.
Yeah.
The Specials.
Yeah, I had the Specials. I was going to say the Specials. The Specials in the City by the Jam.
Jam. Oh,
Leftism by Left Field. First Public Enemy album. Phenomenal.
I can't believe I forgot Left Field. That's in my top 5 albums of all time.
Right.
Shit. What a
It's
dick.
fucking great. It's a fucking brilliant album, right?
Oh God. And I don't even like reggae, and it's
so
basically a
many-
reggae album, and I
Fucking
love it. It's-
Please Please Me by the Beatles. Come on, mate. For fuck's sake. You know what I mean?
No, they didn't get
Yeah,
good until.
I thought that for a nanosecond.
My Generation by the Who. Come on. you know?
Yeah, I got that. Actually, I got that. I don't know why I didn't say it, but I think there's, yeah, they're good,
Well, I found
but
really-
they're
I
not
found
great,
really-
are they? That's the problem. There's a lot of debut albums that have like 2 or 3 killer tracks, and it's like, yeah, that is great, but then the rest of it is a bit.
But that's the thing, and this is what I found difficult, and the reason I didn't choose like the Beatles or the Who or bands like that, because I started thinking of bands I like, and then what was their debut album. But it's difficult to pick those because more often than not, a band's debut album is not their best album.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they get better at making albums.
Right.
So, but when you say the Beatles, Please Please Me, it's not even in my top 10 Beatles albums.
Yeah,
You know,
you're right.
it's
So, Stone Roses is the best debut album of all time.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
the one we voted for. Let's hear
Yeah, sure.
yours. What did we miss? Let us know. We'd also like to know your ideas for future episodes.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode where we're going to be talking about our favourite underrated footballers.
Go!
Take it easy.